The 16th ranking event of the snooker season has now come to an end, and we are now only one away from the season finale in Sheffield. And as a result from last week's action, we know the 12 men who will be at the next week's Tour Championship in Manchester, and we are almost completely short of the top 16 seedings for the Crucible as well. The only man now in danger is 16th seed Jack Jones, who isn't at the Tour Championship, but there is only one man left who can overtake him, and that is Wu Yize, but he would need to go all the way and win the title next week to break into the top 16. This should also hopefully mean that the draw for the World Championship qualifiers will be just around the corner, and that will kickstart the multiple videos I have lined up on this channel over the coming weeks in preparation for the big one. So if you're a massive snooker fan and really looking forward to the World Championship, do stick around because there's plenty of content coming your way on this channel. But as a review of last week's tournament, I really only want to focus this video on the two finalists, Judd and Kyren Wilson. The tournament was for the top 16 players of the season, but as perhaps was almost inevitable, it was the top two players who played out the final for the third time this season. In fact, the four semi-finalists were the top four on the one-year list. And despite players such as John Higgins, Neil Robertson, Mark Selby, Zhao Guodong and Shaun Murphy all having very, very good seasons, these two have just been on another level. Both of them came into this event having won 3 titles each already this season, and do almost seem to be spurring each other on as the season progresses. For Judd, winning at least 3 titles a season kind of seems to be the norm for him now. And apart from that season about 3 years ago where he only, and I emphasise the word only ironically, 2 titles, he has consistently been the best player of the season year after year after year. His dedication to becoming a winning machine is something the sport possibly hasn't seen since the likes of Steve Davis and Stephen Hendry. And I know this is just stating the obvious, but he is just such a joy to watch play this game of ours. And Alan McManus actually summed it up perfectly during that match against Shaun Murphy last week when he said, sometimes you forget just how good Judd is, and it sounds silly to say that, but it's true because of how effortlessly easy, he makes the game look at times. And of course, he is continuing with his quest for 100 centuries this season, and without wanting to put the jinx on him, I really do think it's pretty much nailed on now. Just 9 to go, and every match he plays from now until the end of the season will be at least 2 sessions long. So unless he loses opening round in both the Tour Championship and the World Championship, I think it's almost a formality for a player who makes them as regularly as he does. But the one issue Judd has had this season has come in the form of the current reigning world champion Kyren Wilson. They've played each other 5 times and Kyren has won 4 of them this season. But perhaps the most telling statistic of them all is that Kyren is currently 3 for 3 from the finals they've contested this season. And even more impressively, he has won all 5 multiple session matches the pair have ever played, a run that also includes the Shanghai Masters final 10 years ago and the World Championship quarterfinal when Judd was the defending champion. The win Judd has had this season was a big one at the UK Championship semi-finals on his way to landing a 5th Triple Crown title, but I do think this unwanted record may start to annoy him a little bit.
He's beginning to annoy me.
But then Kyren Wilson this season has been nothing short of brilliant. This time last year he had 5 ranking titles to his name and no Triple Crown titles at all. Fast forward a year and he has doubled that total along with winning the biggest one of them all. I've said this a lot before, but most first time world champions tend to shrink under the added spotlight that mantle kind of puts on you. But these two men have used the mantle to take their games to a brand new level. Not only does Kyren have 4 titles to his name this season already, but he was of course a runner-up at the Masters as well, and to his credit, that disappointing loss to Shaun Murphy has not shaken him one bit at all. And every time you watch him play, he just oozes confidence now. He still possesses a very strong tactical game, but he has become a man who just goes for his shots a lot more and tries to kill off frames as quickly as possible. Remarkably, there was a time not so long ago that his break building was considered his biggest weakness, but now he can compete with the very, very best in that department as well, including Judd. And then the final itself yesterday may not have been the highest quality that these two can produce, but it didn't half lack for drama. The conditions seemed to cause a little bit of havoc, which may have spoiled it from being the high standard affair we perhaps expected, But from a neutral point of view, nothing beats a bit of drama and a really close, tense final. And I give a lot of credit to Judd because when Kyren went 8-5 up, that kind of felt to me like he had broken the back of that final, especially as he had just stolen the 13th frame from some 60 odd points behind. But Judd, he just refuses to know when he's beaten, and even when struggling to find his absolute best form, still has that stickability about him which forces his opponent to beat him rather than just meekly going down without a fight. He did get a chance in the decider but lost position. It was a really key moment when he lost position on the blue when he needed to break open the remaining reds. And then of course missed that do or die long red, which kind of gifted Kyren with an unmissable chance to close out the match, which with the form that Kyren's in, he was just never going to let up. And Kyren, he just never looked flustered, even when Judd was coming back at him. And that just highlights the incredible self-belief, self-confidence he is operating with at the moment. His performance from 4-1 down to Neil Robertson in the semi-finals was equally as impressive. And just to further emphasise his ability to shrug off negativity, he went 5-4 down to Robertson, having gone in-off on a respotted black, and then prevented Neil from potting another ball by making 2 one-visit breaks to win the match. He has just been pure class, and Judd's made a cheeky little comment after his semi-final win that Kyren is in the middle of a purple patch that will come to an end at some point. But it's quite a purple patch to be going on for a year now, and personally, I see this as just a start of what this man could go on to achieve. And those very little subtle comments from Judd is what makes this rivalry even more enjoyable, at least for me. There's no bad blood between them. They don't hate each other, far from it. However, there is just a little bit extra in their matchups, and I kind of get the feeling that both players hate losing to each other more than any other player. And perhaps the reason for that is because they are both of a similar age. Kyren's 33, Judd 35. And maybe they feel like they want to one-up each other as the best of their age group. And as I said earlier, that might just be pushing them to go on and do even better things. And looking forward, it would be fitting if they do meet at the World Championship as well, because they are both guaranteed to be seeded 1 and 2 going into Sheffield, so they could only meet in the World Championship final, and that would be some final. Now, I do remember saying the same last year when Judd and O'Sullivan were both head and shoulders above the rest and could have met in the Crucible semi-finals, but both ended up losing their respective quarterfinals. So nothing in this sport is a given. But it would arguably be the World Championship final that this season has deserved. And it would, of course, have that little bit extra riding on it with, the Crucible curse, and also the fact that Kyren has this 100% record in multi-session matches over Judd that we talked about. But yeah, I am getting way ahead of myself there. And for now, this is just a dedication video really to 2 outstanding snooker players who still have at least a decade at the very top of this sport. And here's to hoping that this rivalry extends for many more seasons to come. Like I say, it's personally one of my favourite matchups in the sport at the moment. And hopefully they'll be playing in many big finals to come.